Welcome to the Married People Podcast, where we help you make marriage real, fun, and simple. Each week, we have honest conversations about one simple thing that can make your marriage better. Because when your marriage is better, everything's better. I'm CJ, and this week, I'm excited to be joined by our resident newlywed, Afton.
Hi.
And our 23-year marriage veteran. He's an author, speaker, and the director of marriedpeople.org, Ted Lowe.
Hey, everybody.
And our very special guest this week, Andrew Bowen.
Hi, good to be here.
And we'll learn a little bit more about Andrew in a second. But today on the Married People Podcast, we're talking about the question, how does health and fitness impact my marriage? How does it impact your marriage?
This is a great question, CJ, because I ate 4 donuts this morning.
Okay, that's a great start. We'll start there. But
you think I'm kidding. Ask me what flavors they were.
No, I don't think anybody who's a listener of this podcast thinks you're kidding right now.
Great. One was key lime. I was an M&M. There was a Fruity Pebbles.
Oh, okay.
There was a lot of. They were gourmet. They were gourmet donuts.
Gourmet
so it's
donuts.
Not like they were just.
Fruity Pebbles is gourmet now.
Fruity Pebbles donut, though. Have you ever heard of that? I had to eat it.
What I love is that you probably spent more on that donut than a box of Fruity Pebbles. You know?
That's true. I've got to figure out how to make those at home.
But today on the Married People Podcast, we're talking about how does health and fitness impact your marriage? And to help us answer that question is our very special guest, Andrew Bowen. Now, Andrew is a husband, a father to 2 teenage guys, travels a ton for work as a corporate executive and entrepreneur, and the reason we have him here today is a health and fitness coach and mentor with his wife, Joy. And Andrew, we are so excited to have you, and for so many reasons, but especially for this specific episode. So thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to be here. Can't wait for the conversation.
So we're talking about how does health and fitness impact your marriage, and we started off on a great note with Afton's 4 donuts this morning. It's really going to get us all on the same
same page.
All on the same page. But we're talking about health and fitness specifically in your marriage, and the truth is it's difficult for all of us to keep health and fitness a priority in our lives and in our marriages.
And I don't think, on this podcast, I think we've talked very many times about our get home from work rituals. CJ, you actually do make working out a priority. You like to work out. I like to work out my thumbs on my Netflix controller.
And so everybody's on a different level when it comes to your fitness and where you start. You might start with your thumbs, and work your way up to, a light walk outside or jog.
And you jog, right, Ted?
We do.
You jog together?
Yeah. Sometimes she likes morning workouts and I like afternoon workouts. So sometimes that doesn't work out.
Ooh.
Oh, man.
Good one.
The ching. Yep.
So, Andrew, it's difficult for all of us, like we were saying, to make health and fitness a priority. Tell us a little bit about your story and where you began on your fitness and nutrition journey.
Truth be told, guys, this hasn't been something I've been doing all of the time. This is something that started probably about, 8 years ago. I was 37 at the time. I was training in martial arts, but I was just heavy. And every time I got off a mat, everything hurt. And, I was there with my kids. I was playing around. And if I'm truly being honest with myself, I was actually probably mildly depressed. You mentioned earlier I was on the road constantly, which means a lot of alone time and a lot of time to either self-examine yourself or try and soothe yourself through something else. And I was doing that through food and inactivity and that wonderful Netflix controller, but it wasn't Netflix back then. I had to use DVDs. So it's been a journey, and it's a priority in our marriage now. It wasn't always. In fact, when I finally made the decision that I wanted to turn things around, Joy actually kind of fought me for about 2.5, 3 years until we had a couple major medical curveballs thrown at us that kind of put it right in our face that we had to do something about that. So now, it's easy, but that's been a process over 8 years. We didn't start from going off the couch to running triathlons, which I still have a triathlon. So
what was Joy's pushback initially?
I think it was a little bit of jealousy more than anything else, honestly. And she would tell you the same thing, that it was taking time away from her. So here I am on the road 60% of the time at least. I come home and say, hey, I'm going to the gym.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's not with her. And since that time, she's kind of had some self-realization as well, that part of it also was that, okay, well, I was making the efforts to get myself healthier and improved and stick around longer for my family. And she saw that a little bit as a affront to her that, okay, well, she wasn't doing that at that point in time.
Kind of made her maybe say, wow, I'm watching this. I probably need to be doing this myself, but it's just the constant reminder that I'm not.
Yeah. And I mean, you put that on top of the fact that, again, I'm absent from the household, not the relationship, but the household a lot on there. So, and then when I do come back, I'm then going for an hour a day. I mean, it's why I don't play golf. Like, I don't play golf because I'm not spending 5 hours away from my family when I'm spending 4 days a week away from my family.
I totally get that. I feel the same way. I don't travel nearly as much as you do, but, I definitely feel like, hey, if I choose to go work out or I choose to go for an evening run after work, like that's okay. You finish work at 5 and now I'm not getting home till 6:30 or 7 or something like that. And there is that tension like, hey, that was 2 hours we could have spent together, or hey, that was 2 hours we could have been doing something else. So that's a very real, tension for a lot of couples, I think, Andrew. And as a fitness coach, what are some other reasons you hear people not getting into shape or kind of resisting some of that?
Well, you get the classic ones of I don't have the time.
Right.
Well, we all have the same amount of time every day. It's a matter of how are you using that time. But I think the biggest one is everyone sees the end results, and you see someone on their 8th year of this journey, not on their first step, and you have that difficulty of envisioning, okay, what's that one thing or those two things I can do today that are a little bit different? It's not going to immediately change everything you eat and the portions you eat and make sure you're getting, 5 hours a day of exercise in, which isn't healthy. Don't do that.
I'm not in any danger.
You're not in any danger.
Okay.
5 hours of Netflix.
We cut back to 3.5 donuts is what we do.
Right.
So I mean, those are the big ones that I hear is just people being overwhelmed with either time commitments or not really seeing the vision on what they can do in the smaller steps to get to that end goal.
So, Andrew, if you were to rewind before you made this decision, would those have been your same excuses?
Absolutely. I mean, I was in the same boat. I was the guy who, even when I traveled, I packed workout clothes for probably 4 years without ever taking them out of the bag.
Gotcha.
Like, it was just like, oh, this is the trip. I'll get on the treadmill on there. And then sure enough, I'd get busy. I'd do something else and I wouldn't.
Also, though, working out is hard. So that's, I feel like maybe even number one reason is even if I find time, I'm like, I did hard stuff all day today at my full-time job. Do I want to go do more hard stuff that I still don't like?
This is why we love Afton Andrew right here, because she speaks what everyone else is thinking.
Right.
The thing is, it is hard, but all that other hard stuff didn't cause your brain to dump a bunch of serotonin in it. Exercise does that. You actually feel good afterwards. Even though you're tired and you're exhausted, A, you did something hard. That deserves a pat on the back, and then B, your body gives you that pat on the back by dumping a bunch of serotonin in your brain. I won't go too biochemistry on you, but that's what you want.
Yeah, that high fructose corn syrup is not doing the same thing for your brain, I hear. The Fruity Pebbles, just not quite on the same level. But
it took years for me to convince Nancy that exercise would make you feel better, because she would start up, and our kids were really small at the time too, and so she would start up a little bit and she goes, I know that it does that for you, but it doesn't do that for me. And now she's a machine. But for a long time she just was not buying it.
So, Andrew, we all know, like, okay, working out, nutrition, it's all great for you. It impacts your life. It impacts your future health. But how would you say, being in shape or maybe even not being in shape impacts not just you, but your marriage?
Yeah, lots of different ways. And I would start that by being the father, if you don't mind. I'll start with the father figure, because we've actually had a lot of this go on in our family. Being that example for my boys was something that was uplifting of my status in Joy's mind. So the more I was that example for the boys to follow and to challenge and to move forward, and we've had challenges, certainly. We've got an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old. And candidly, the 18-year-old battled with depression, was on meds for a while. And so the talk about that serotonin and all that biochemistry, I know that because I had to do too much research around it to get my son moving again.
Wow.
But as far as our marriage goes, that being that example to those two kids was a big part of bringing us closer together, and knowing that you're right, exercise is hard, eating right is hard, but having that struggle and seeing your spouse be willing to fight that struggle because they want to be there longer for you and the family, the provider, again, brings you closer together. The other thing I would tell you about exercising with your spouse, especially if you're doing it to like a video of another trainer that's out there, there's something encouraging and invigorating about both of you hating the same person, because it's something you're going to hate that trainer. It's that joint fight at that point.
Yeah.
So you guys work out together as a couple, which is something I've made very clear to my spouse will never happen. Because here's my thing, Andrew. Like, when you work out, you are disgusting. Like, you look disgusting, you are disgusting. And I feel very self-conscious about Hudson looking at me while I'm working out, looking terrible, he also looking terrible, and us looking at each other looking terrible and disgusting. And I just want to I made it very clear, like, if I work out, you are in another room and you don't come in here and you don't look at me. So how do you feel about working out as a couple?
I think what Afton is asking is, do you enjoy see each other when you are working out?
I'm just saying that is like a common thing though. Like, no, there are people that just don't like working out together because it's just
absolutely. I can tell you we are both sweaty, disgusting messes if we've done our workout the right way. Like, if depending on the workout, if you're not a sweaty, disgusting mess, you probably didn't go hard enough, but that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, we enjoy working out for a couple reasons. And, we didn't start this way. This wasn't something that we said, hey, we're all going to go work out together. When we were really younger, before we had kids, we would go to the gym together like once every other week. She'd go do a class. I'd go lift weights or pretend like I lifted weights. And then we'd meet up at the end. So we both had that commitment, but we weren't necessarily doing the same thing. Things pretty dramatically changed for us about 5 years ago with that, when a big part of our story is overcoming medical adversity through all this. My wife's a breast cancer survivor and went through a double mastectomy. It was about 5 years ago now. And coming out of that, she would tell you she felt like an alien in her own skin. And that's where we used exercise, particularly more of a yoga and Pilates, which before that exercise, I would have told you, I don't want to do yoga. Like, that is not what I want to do at all. But by being there together and being that support, getting her moving through that, it kind of brought us along this path where now we're sweaty together all the time. But, I love the fact that, okay, just to be a little blunt, what do you do after you get all sweaty like that? Take a shower, right?
Yes.
There are benefits. We like sweat dates. That's all I'm going to say.
We like sweat dates. Yes. That's the tweet of the day right there.
There you go.
Yeah. Hashtag sweat dates are good. I like it.
Yes, they are.
So obviously, Andrew, you and Joy have made some big changes in your lives the past 5 to 8 years. So was the health stuff like the biggest catalyst for some of that, or did it start before that? Was it a gradual thing, or was it no, you know what, we're flipping a switch, we're changing our lifestyle? What did it take for you guys to get the ball rolling? Because I think a lot of people are listening to this thinking, you have to go from 0 to 100, and maybe you do, maybe you don't. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'll talk about my own journey first, and then Joy's and mine combined. For me, I can bring it down to a single moment, but it was not this sudden, I'm going to shift everything at that moment. As I mentioned, all the guys in my family all study martial arts. We've all got a black belt of some type. And I remember watching my first black belt test on the sidelines as an adult and literally thinking, I will not survive that. There is no way I have the cardiovascular energy to be able to do what they did. And that was kind of when I had made the decision of, okay, I tend to be an extremist on a couple of different things. Like when I was in Scouts, I got my Eagle Scout. I do these other things. I was going to get my black belt. You're not going to stop me from that. And I knew to do that, I was going to have to change some things. So that was my seminal moment when I realized and looked in the mirror that, okay, I was 40 pounds heavier than I was when I got married.
Oh, wow.
Now, then it was it started off small things. Like the first thing I did was replace French fries with either a vegetable or salad. Like I just wasn't going to eat French fries anymore. I would still get a burger, but I wasn't going to have the French fries with it.
Afton, I see you kind of...
She just about fell out of the chair.
I just love French fries so much.
I do too. That's my treat. I love them. But the problem was I really loved them. Like every day, twice a day, loved them. But it was something simple like that. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it, but Andy Stanley did a sermon at one point on guardrails and the importance of what they are. They're not there to guide you. They're there to keep you from careening off the cliff. And so I kind of looked at my life on the road and asked, okay, well, what are the guardrails I needed to put in? And they were 4 simple to say, not always simple to do things. And that was, I tried to never eat brown food, which meant basically anything fried. Remember, I was living life on the
that would be included, probably.
Yeah. I tried to, since I was on the road, I was always eating in restaurants, constantly. So I didn't have the chance to make stuff. So I'm not the guy who said, I'm going to make every piece of food and I'm going to put it in the perfect container and I'm going to do all that. Mine was more, okay, great. I didn't want to eat in a restaurant that I could eat at home. So try and avoid the chain. Let's go to the family place that will probably do things a little bit more healthy for you. The other one that I had in there was, if you see fruit, eat it. On the road, that's the hardest thing to get is, fruits and vegetables, especially snack stuff. It's easy to go through a drive-through and get a burger. But so if you see that banana, just grab it and you're going to have the banana at that point. Yeah. And then the last one I had in place on these kind of gradual steps was mentally made the rule, work out before wine. It's if you were going to have wine or a drink that day with dinner, you're having dinner with clients, your workout had to come first. So let's prioritize that. So.
Wow, those are all great. And if you're like me and you were listening to Andrew list those and you're like, oh man, I should have been writing all that down, or maybe you're driving, or maybe you're exercising right now, we'll have all those listed out in the show notes for you if you're interested in recapping some of those.
Okay, so we know why kind of Joy seemed kind of, Andrew's wife seemed like kind of anti-fitness for a little while, and then she kind of had a catalyst moment that propelled her to become more fit and healthy. But Ted, you said Nancy was kind of the same way, where she was kind of ambivalent towards working out, but now it seems like she loves it. So what happened? What made her change?
Yeah, I think she was probably a little bit like Joy in the fact that, she was I won't say she's resentful of exercise, but it was a little bit. So I think if she agreed with me, then it was going to mean she had to make some changes or whatever. And I think one of the things when you talk about, you get these, and, Andrew, you can speak more to this than I can, but when you talk about the endorphins and the dopamine, that felt like that would come a little bit later into the process. Right now, I feel like I can really feel that. And when you're when I first started, and my goal was always to gain as much pregnancy weight as Nancy did, so I didn't want her to feel alone. So that would be those workouts that it didn't feel like, now I feel like $1 million. Now it feels like I kind of want to throw up a little bit. So I think that beginning stages, sometimes it's hard for people to get going, but once she got going, and she's pretty driven, so she's pretty driven. So I think once it clicked for her, it really clicked for her. And it's sort of the things now she would say, I do this for me. I do this. And she's got crazy amounts of energy, crazy.
What pushed her to start pushing through and seeing if she liked it? Was there something, or was she like, oh, I just want to do this with Ted? Or
yeah, it wasn't, I don't think for her, it was a big moment at all. I think it was very, very gradual. And it was.
She just wanted to be healthier.
Yeah, she said, "I don't feel great." The kids are, you're kind of eating part of their peanut butter and jelly sandwiches often as you're making them, things like that. And so,
I always felt bad about leaving food on the table at restaurants, so I would be the one who hoovered my kids' plates.
Right.
Exactly.
That's really true, though. I think there are a lot of times where don't you ever just go to bed at night and you're like, man, I just don't really feel that good. But I kind of always don't feel good. So whatever. Do you ever? Is that just me? That makes me sound really unhealthy.
Yeah.
But it's true, because that does impact the way you interact with people then, or how your mood, or so it probably does have more of an impact on your marriage than you would think.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ted, to your point, it's not, one workout is not going to give you that. It is the ongoing, even if it's just a week. Part of it is the self-confidence of, hey, I just did a week, and that week is not working out every day. That week might be working out 3 days, or that week might be, hey, I stuck to the meal plan I was thinking I was going to eat. I didn't have soda that week. Whatever that little thing is, it's that sense of accomplishment that starts to boost that feeling of pride, and that is contagious. That is, in some people, it's addictive.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, for me, it is that achievement. It's that, eventually you get to, because that's more my personality, and eventually you just get to a point where you don't want to let go of the years that you've put into your physical fitness or your ability to run X number of miles and that kind of a thing. And then at the same time, from the marriage component, like, I think there's something valuable about, my wife, Terry, and I both work out, rarely together for some of the same reasons, Afton, that you share, but sometimes, just because it is a weird thing a barrier you have to like get through a little bit. But, there's something powerful for us in that we have something to talk about that we're both interested in, and we're both valuing something the same way. I think it might be funny, and Andrew, you might be able to speak to this as well. Like, if one person in the marriage works out and the other one doesn't, I could see that creating tension, just because now it's like, oh, well, I value how my body, functions, and I value what's coming, what my body's going to look and feel like 10 years from now, 15 years from now, and you're not putting the same care into your body as I am. Have you ever noticed some of those kinds of tensions pop up in the people you coach?
Yeah, absolutely. We see it all the time, and I'm embarrassed to say that ironically, it's mostly from the husbands that we see that from. In our coaching business, we're probably 90% women, 10% men across the way we've attracted people. But oftentimes the husbands will be that barrier. And I see it on a couple different levels. I think number one, I think there is that jealousy we talked about earlier. Jealousy is probably not the right word, but I'm struggling for what the right word is. Of one spouse being made to be felt subservient because they're not having that same priority of themselves. Now, that first spouse probably never said that, never imposed that at all. It's the self-thought of the opposing spouse that's really, really driving that. But yeah, it's shocking how common I see it in relationships, where I want to go and shake men sometimes and just go, okay, your wife just told you that she wants to go get in better shape, to look better, to be healthier, to be there longer for you. Yeah. That's a bad thing? Like, where is that? I'm missing that part.
Wow. Yeah.
Just push buttons of insecurities too.
Yeah.
Like, we've noticed too, like, with family members that aren't into exercise, we have learned not to talk about it because it doesn't encourage them. It feels like it discourages them, or it's like almost like statements of judgment. So we have learned to just, hey, we're going to model this, and if people want to, do it, then great. But I think there's a little bit of that with husband and wives too, to come in, oh man, my workout was so crazy.
Are you saying you don't do that?
I think you don't talk about it as much. I mean, I think that's the approach we've taken with our families. I think you model it, but I think not talking about it all the time. If your spouse it's already their button. I don't know, Andrew, what do you think about that?
I actually agree with you in principle, but I think that our country as a whole is facing an epidemic as well that we need to start talking about. Mm-hmm. The rates of obesity in America are ridiculous right now. It's over 60%, or maybe 40%. But like, I noticed it not only with family. I was just at a work conference where obviously everyone's getting plates of food, and a lot of the folks I work with, actually, I do health and fitness with them as well. And several of them, as I walk by with their plate, are saying like, "Don't look at my plate." I'm like, I don't care. I go enjoy yourself. Do what you do. I'm not judging your plate. But again, it's back to that insecurity of, if you're putting something front and center in your life, and you're putting it out there on social media, as Joy and I do, it's obviously no secret. I think other people will internalize and see that example, and clearly then they're realizing that, okay, maybe I can make a different choice. So every time I have someone do that, I go, okay, great. You've at least got the recognition that you've got the opportunity to make a better choice, which means the next time you might make a better choice.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, here's a fun one, Andrew. You say that working out together is greatest aphrodisiac known to man. Talk about that a little bit.
I do. So a couple different things on this one. Let's talk biochemistry for just a moment. There are two things that happen when you work out consistently over time. A, your serotonin levels go up. We kind of already talked about that. And serotonin is actually tied to sex drive. But secondarily, both in men and women, as you build muscle and you work out, you create testosterone. And testosterone also increases sex drive in both men and women. So it is literally a aphrodisiac that's in play. The other way, though, is when you're feeling better about yourself and you're feeling more confident, especially for women, you've seen that progress, at least in our relationship, when we're not in a good spot about feeling good about ourselves, the last thing we really want to do is go have intimate relations at that point. Mm-hmm. That self-confidence is where all of that relationship, that physical relationship, drives from in there. And both the immediate exercise with the biochemical results, but also the long-term effects of it, showing that you have been able to achieve a goal and feel better about yourself, go to that long-term relationship. And I also say with the sweat dates, we've especially, here's what I don't encourage you to do. Nobody should be each other's trainer. You'll kill each other because at some point, again, you're going to hate your trainer. Yeah. But you've got somebody else who's leading that. You can get mad at them and you can get mad at them together. And suddenly you have that common enemy to have on there. So that's where I say it's kind of the greatest effort.
Terry and I have definitely had those moments when we've worked out together. And again, when we do these days, it's definitely better. But especially early on in our marriage, when we would work out together, we're trying to impress each other. And so we would end up correcting each other a lot. Or, if we would go on for a run together, I would be trying to pick up my pace to, impress her and that kind of a thing. And then that ends up, discouraging her because she can't keep up, or she's like, no, just fine. Just go run at your own pace. We'll talk through this later, that kind of stuff. And it's justified, right? But I mean, to that point, that definitely is that's definitely a real thing. And then we started taking some group classes at our local gym, and you are totally right. Like, we could both look at the trainer guy up there who's leading the class and be like, don't you just want to strangle him right now, because this is awful, and we're both on the same page there. So, and that definitely does build a little camaraderie too. So that's a +1 for that point for sure.
You know what else is an aphrodisiac? Chocolate.
True. And dark chocolate's really good for you, actually.
Chocolate donuts are even better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
where does Fruity Pebbles land on that scale?
I mean, probably pretty high, I would think.
Oh man.
How do we encourage each other without stepping on each other's toes? Because I'll tell you this, me having any opinion about Nancy's size or progress, like if I were to say, wow, you look more toned, her instant response would be, oh, so I wasn't toned before. Or, oh, have you lost some weight? Oh, was I big before? So the only thing I ever say to her,
you look great.
Like when she will literally say, do you think whatever? I'll be like, I'm not commenting about any of that. And I just have a rule that I don't do that. That's like a no-fly zone for her. The only thing I do say, I say, you're so beautiful. I say that often. But have you found that? Like, how do you encourage each other? And especially, how does a man encourage a woman with it not getting personal? Or is this just Nancy Lowe world?
No, I think that, obviously in any relationship, communication is key. And we've gotten to the point in our relationship where I love that you say you're so beautiful. I greet Joy every morning, whether it's on the phone or it's, thing is hello, gorgeous. That is every morning. That is it. But I think the key to being able to comment on someone's progress, because it's important to do that. They need that reaffirmation actually, but you have to understand, what are their goals? If their goal was to, make their pants fit a little bit better, you commenting that, wow, your triceps look a lot better today. Okay, well, that's not what they were actually trying to work on. So it's having those conversations, not in the gym, just like you have conversations around sex life, not in the bedroom. You have that conversation of what is it you're trying to, if you could change one thing about your body over the next month, what would it be? Like what? Yeah, and those are the conversations that the trainers often have. Is like, when I started this whole thing, my whole goal was I wanted to look decent in a t-shirt. So if you told me, wow, your calves are really popping today. Okay, well, that's not anything of what I wanted to go for at all. And I think you're right. When we're talking about people's physical appearances, especially if they're not secure in themselves, it's really easy to step on a landmine. that are out there.
I think it depends on your gender too, though, because I feel like when I say to Hudson, "Hey, you look skinny today," he's like, "Oh, really? Thank you." And if he were to say that to me, I'd be like, "What the heck? Why would you say that to me? Like, was I not skinny? I'm the same way as Nancy. I'm like, was I not skinny yesterday? Why would you say that to me?" And I feel like it's different based on gender. Like, I feel like I can compliment him if he's looking different or I notice something or whatever, and he's all proud of it. But like, maybe it's me and Nancy have the same insecurity or something. Maybe it's all women, but it feels like it does depend on the person what you can acknowledge. I don't know. Do you?
You watch men and women stand in front of mirrors getting ready. You know, Nancy walks in like this because I don't think this looks good, and I'm standing there, chest out, gut sucked in, going, "I think this looks nice." Like I'm never going to walk like that, right? But yeah, it may be a gender thing. It is at our house. I'll take a compliment all day and roll with that.
Yeah, I mean, you're gesturing toward me, Afton. I think Terry is the same way. Like, you have to be careful. And yeah, I mean, I think Terry and I are, Terry knows that my intention is never to, you know, say something negative or hurt her.
We know it's not your intention. It's just, we just think that. We just like, that's how we respond.
Yep.
Exactly. So shifting gears just a little bit, Andrew, we're talking a whole lot about fitness and nutrition, but what about that couple who one of them is passionate about this topic, the other one isn't? One of them's in shape, one of them's not.
Well, before we get into that question, CJ, can I ask Andrew?
Yes, go ahead. You can just jump right in.
Obviously, it's fine for me to jump in if you're talking, CJ. Can we just define, what do we mean by getting fit or like being healthy? Because like, I just feel like it could be different for everybody. And I also feel like when we're talking about fitness and healthiness, there's no like, great, I achieved it. I'm fit. I'm healthy. Like I've reached all of my potential and now I can just live I just feel like it's kind of a moving target. So I don't know how we're defining it.
What Afton's really asking is how many donuts can she have every
Thank
morning?
you for reading the underlying question.
Just to finish that question.
And I think that's a great question, because I don't think there is such a thing as, okay, I'm in shape on there. And that doesn't mean that if you are on the couch constantly, you're not doing anything, you're not paying any attention, that you shouldn't get better tomorrow. For me, that fitness journey is, okay, how can I be better tomorrow than I am today? And again, it's little tiny steps that get you through a long journey that's in play. So what I don't want to do is sit here and define and say, oh, well, you should be a BMI of below 18 and you should have a waist circumference size of less than 36 if you're a man, although you should, because there's heart disease associated with that. But it is, to me, that fitness journey is exactly that. It's someone who is getting in shape, to me, is someone who's decided to place their health as one of their priorities. And what that means for each individual really depends on where they're starting, how far on the journey they've gotten, and where they want to get to. Mm-hmm. I have zero desire to be a Ironman triathlete. Like that's a completely different level of cardiovascular fitness than I ever want to even touch with a 10-foot pole.
You and I have that in common, Andrew.
Yeah. But I also want to be the grandfather who is able to play with his grandkids.
Yeah.
Actively out there on the field. It's twisted to say I was the father who was on the karate mat who I never wanted to tap out to my kids, and I still want to be able to kick them in the head. But I do.
That's
it's harder
dream.
now at 18. So I mean, I guess so I'm sorry to give you an ambiguous answer, but I think it is different for every person. And whether you're not the model shape on the magazine, that doesn't mean you're not fit and healthy and on your own journey.
Yeah. And so kind of getting back to what I was asking there, thank you, Afton, for that clarification. So what does it look like to get your spouse on board if they aren't passionate about this? Like maybe one spouse is and one spouse isn't.
So meet them. At some point, you have to meet them where they're at. So if you're the spouse that is passionate about all this stuff and it's how you fill your bucket and it's how you spend your time, great, go do that. Go be you and get your bucket filled. One of my favorite things to do when I'm running, and I run about once a week, I get out of the space, I'm able to put headphones on and just kind of connect with myself, where in the busy world, you're not. For other people, that may be a craft that they do. It may be their reading. To understand that's where you've got those two differences. But then also model the rest. It may be on the nutrition side. One of the things that I took on in my family, because I do travel so much, and Joy's love language is acts of service. I do the meal planning and the meal prep and the cooking for every week. Part of it's because I know it's my only way out of the doghouse for being gone all week. But that was an act of service I could do. And by the way, at that point, I'm able to kind of help control the nutritional menu as well. And I know that my kids are going to have at least one meal that's in there where they're not running through the drive-through on their own on that level. So there's little things like that you can do to not only model, but especially if acts of service or something in the love language on there are definitely little things you can do to help push that along. The worst thing you can do, though, is say, well, why aren't you working out with me? Why aren't you doing this? And that's just the worst.
Yeah, no, that's so great. That's really good advice.
I think just to also piggyback on that, like being healthy and getting fit and all of that, I just feel like right now we're like really focused on like get to the gym, work as hard as you can. But I feel like for me, being healthy with Hudson isn't like you need to be healthy, we need to both work out. It's like, hey, let's like take the dogs for a walk to the waterfall on the other side. Like it doesn't have to be like, you need to come to the gym with me. Sometimes it's just like, hey, let's do something fun together that gets us moving, that isn't like, we're not going to come back drenched in sweat, but we're doing something.
Yeah.
It's a great example. Yeah. That's great. It doesn't always have to be terrible.
That's
right?
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't have to be miserable all the time.
It doesn't have to be miserable. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew, we love to boil all of our conversations down to one simple thing for couples to take away. And this week, though, I think maybe the best approach might be to break it down into a few different groups. What would be a one simple thing for a beginner to just take a step to move toward better health and fitness?
So for the beginners, they could do one of two things. Either do something you didn't do yesterday, meaning like an exercise. You're walking the dog to the waterfall is a great example of something like that. Or they can do the opposite and stop doing something like, I'm not going to drink more than 5 sodas in a day for some people on there. But don't overcomplicate it. Pick one thing you can achieve, do that for a couple weeks, and then pick the next thing. Yeah. And just keep picking the next thing.
That's awesome. I love that. Do something you didn't do yesterday, or stop doing something you do every day. So let's talk to the next group. So maybe there's a couple who's doing a little bit toward their, health and fitness. It's on their radar, but they want to take it up a notch. So what would be your one simple thing for that group?
So the one simple thing I would say for that group is really get on some type of a program. And there are tons of programs out there in YouTube land from trainers. You can contact us, all those kind of things. But that's something organized, because the people that tend to be in the middle, they might go to gym a couple days and then they fall off for 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go back and they're good for 3 weeks. But it's to really get that consistency. Once you get that consistency, both in the exercise, which is about 20% of it, and then the other is the 80% of there is the nutrition side of the equation. So find a real program that you can stick to and do it. If it's a 60-day program, stick to it on point for 60 days. You'd be amazed at what you can do.
That's awesome. I think that's where Terry and I are. We kind of bebop along a little bit, and Terry's further down the road than I am. She does work on programs, but I just go and my approach is like, if I'm moving weights or something, I'm probably working out something. So getting on a program.
Here's a great fitness tip. Did you guys know that if you go to a gym and you get on a treadmill, a lot of times they have Netflix on your treadmill?
Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
You get your Netflix, fix.
You can watch Friends
I did that
and
yesterday.
work out.
Yesterday. All day, baby.
But I love that. Get on a program. That's something I need to do. And finally, let's talk about the last group. So a guy and a girl they're rocking it. What would be your one simple thing for them to take their fitness and nutrition to the next level?
Share it with somebody else. Share that example with somebody else that can see it. And actually, Ted, to your point earlier in the beginning of be aware of how you share it. It can be incredibly intimidating for people who aren't on any level of fitness journey to see two people who are just taking it absolutely completely extreme to the very end. And that happy middle, and to really be that example, you've got to share not just the end result, but how did you get there? You know, someone on their first step of the journey can't fathom the 150,000th step of the journey.
Yeah, Andrew, I think that's what I've enjoyed is your transparency that, you know, occasionally you will put up a before photo. I think that's
I love before photos.
yes.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, this guy has not always been like this. He's, you know, he wasn't an Olympian that's just kept himself in marvelous shape. I mean, not that you were in terrible shape, which I think so many people resonate with. It's not necessarily terrible, but you weren't feeling your best. And so I appreciate that part of your journey, the way you share it in that way.
Yeah, I agree. Like seeing those before pictures are always helpful, not just the end result, because a lot of times people need to resonate with that before picture before they take a step, right? So, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. I love what you guys are doing, what you enjoy are doing to model what it looks like to head in the right direction, you know, in your health, in your fitness, and in your marriage. Now, a minute ago, you mentioned like some programs and that kind of a thing that you two do together. So can you tell us a little bit more about that and where people can find that if they are interested, and maybe that second group, that Get on a Program group?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do online accountability groups for people who are looking to achieve an advance in their health and fitness through exercise and nutrition. I focus a lot on sleep, as you can tell, the biochemistry and these kind of things. I'm the science dork. But you can find us on pretty much all the social media platforms. So if you look for Joy and Drew on Facebook, you can find our group there. We'd be happy to connect. We've also, probably the best spot is our website. It's joy-and-drew.com. And then the Instagram, we've been talking about this one. You can find me at Road Warrior Fit. So the combination of fit and being on the road way too much.
That's
Should
awesome.
we have been calling you Drew this whole conversation? I'm so embarrassed.
No, that's quite all right. Actually, it's funny. The only person who really called me Drew throughout my entire adult life is my wife. But we actually just found that Joy and Andrew didn't flow nearly as well as Joy and Drew. So we're back to Drew.
That makes sense.
That's
Okay,
awesome.
great.
That makes sense. Well, and hey, if you're listening and you're like, wait, that was a lot of stuff, we'll have links to all of that, their social media and their website on our website. So we'll get you connected to everything you need there. So thank you again, Andrew, for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew.
You are very welcome. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. And thank you for joining us for the Married People podcast. We hope that today's episode helped you realize that marriage, and maybe even fitness, is a little easier than you think. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we would love for you to subscribe to the podcast through your Apple Podcast app or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And while you're there, leave us a review. And finally, for more great resources to make your marriage better, including links to find out more about Joy and Andrew's fitness resources, visit our website, marriedpeople.org. Until next time, I'm CJ.
I'm Afton.
I'm Ted.
I'm Andrew.
And thank you for listening.